morning and welcome to Kirsty Knits and Sews. My name is Kirsty and this is my podcast where I talk about all things knitting, crocheting, yarn and occasionally other crafty goodness. I live in Rzeszów with my husband and my two kitties and that is in Poland, and I started this podcast so that I could share my yarny things and make some yarny friends. Today we have a stack of finished objects to share. It has been a month since the last podcast. Normally I do a podcast every 2 weeks, but it's been a month because Christmas. So lots to share. I also thought, being the beginning of the year, I would go through all of my whips, which current count is 8. I started the year with 10. I have already finished 2. Woohoo! So I want to go through all of my whips, including my 2 scrappy blankets, which I guess takes it back up to 10. I also will share with you my sock yarn of the month. Here are my sock yarns. I've decided to do 1 pair of socks every month out of my stash, and I will share the one that I have picked for this month. It is not up there anymore. And I will talk about a little bit of my acquisitions. Now, it's been a month and there's been Christmas. So a lot of what I have received for Christmas, I will just show you as I use it. But there is one thing, that I'm going to share with you. I just thought of another that I would love to share with you, but I left it downstairs. So I won't do that today. And then at the end, I will wrap it up with a little bit of what's been happening. For any of you who are interested, I did do vlogmas, and they are still all on YouTube. If you're interested, you want to go back and look at it. So the finished objects that I finished during vlogmas, I talked about them a lot during vlogmas. If you want to know more, you can go there. I will also link Ravelry project pages for everything I speak about down below. All of my projects finished and in progress. So if you have any questions, you can go have a look there, or you can just comment below and ask me and I'll answer. But it means that the things that I finished during vlogmas, which is during December, before Christmas, I'm not going to talk about a huge amount. I'll show you, give you some basic details. There's a lot more information in vlogmases. The other thing is, if I can remember, yeah, I probably can't. Anyway, so let's get into it. All right, finished objects. These are not in, they're sort of in order of finishing. And now that I've shown you my nice little stack, I can put them on sock blockers. These ones have actually already been gifted. They just haven't been worn. So I just went and stole them so that I could show you. These are the Christmas socks that I made for my husband. They are the Crazy Sock Ladies Vanilla Socks on Magic Loop tutorial and pattern. There's a pattern and tutorial. The tutorials on YouTube pattern is available on Ravelry and I believe Etsy. I changed it. I do a 2x2 rib, not a 1x1 rib. Every time I do her pattern, I change that. Everything else is according to the pattern. Very simple pattern, made simpler by the tutorial. So if you're interested, go check it out. This yarn is Christmas Hobby Christmas Sock Yarn Glitter. You can see that it's glittering there. And I used a Pattern Tile Merino for the sock and heel. Yeah, sock and heel. Toe and heel. Toe and heel. So that is that. I did not make the match. You can see they start at different points, but having the matching heels and toes definitely helps them look like a cohesive pair. I just couldn't be bothered to try and make the match, but I also didn't want to have some of the colours taken out for this. I wanted to keep mostly the same style with the stripes, so I just did a contrast heel, flap and heel turn. And so these stripes then end up slightly smaller, but nothing too noticeable. So this is what, with self-striping yarn, I either like to do a contrast heel turn, heel flap, heel turn, or I'll do a straight tube and then I'll cut in afterwards and add a an afterthought heel. The Crazy Stock Lady, Kay of the Crazy Stock Lady, also has a great tutorial on that. These ones, I wanted to be done when I was done. That's one of the things I love about doing slip stitch, heel flap and gusset. This is the gusset here. Just, you have a bit more room than the rest of the foot. I love that when you're done, you're done. So, yay. I think it was this one. That I was like most of the way through the heel for the second sock when I realized that I hadn't done the contrast color. So I had to rip out almost a whole heel to add in the contrast color so it would match the first sock. That was that, but aside from that, it's fine. They are for my husband. He hasn't tried them on, I don't think, but I'm pretty sure they fit. All right, second pattern, second finish. These are the World's Simplest Mitts by Tin Can Knits. These are for my daughter, so they're quite small. My daughter is 18 months old. I think they're a little big on her, but that's fine because she is growing daily. This one I used 2 yarns held double, so I mulled, 2 fingering weight held double. One is Motivera Not Just Socks in a rainbow colorway. I can't remember what colorway. And the one I held it with was a Galaxy, Bendigo Woolen Mills Galaxy, which is a 50% wool, 50% bamboo in the, I don't remember the colorway, dark blue, nocturnal blue maybe. That sounds right, nocturnal blue. So I love the way that it's mulled to have rainbow, but just a little bit of a darker look and effect. I want to make myself socks like this. I have almost a full skein of this left, so I want to make myself socks. And then I don't think this is part of the pattern. I definitely didn't read it in there. But I then just picked up some yarn, got some yarn, threaded it through here, and then crocheted the end into a chain, kept crocheting a chain, and then when I got around to the other end, crocheted, did a slip stitch through there, and then sewed the end in, because she kept taking them up and throwing them on the ground. And that's not what you want. All right, that was the finish number 2. Finish number 3, since the last podcast, is another pair of socks. Now these ones are done out of the same yarn as these ones, and this is how much I have left over after doing a full pair of men's socks and a pair of kids socks. That much. So I was pretty happy that I don't have a huge amount left, but also that I used up so much of it, and I didn't run out. So these ones are the same, like I said, but you can see that the stripes look very, very different. This one less so, because with these ones, I didn't do a contrast heel flap and gusset, heel flap and heel turn, which means that the red, which would have been the stripe, has become the heel flap, and then the heel turn turned into half of this stripe, and then it continued. Now, I considered doing contrast. I had enough contrast. I just wasn't sure if I wanted to. And then when I got to this part, there was actually a break in the yarn, and it had been re-knotted, and so I chopped the knot and just wove in the ends like I normally do. I don't like knitting through knots. But it meant that the stripes were disrupted anyway. So I'm really, really glad I didn't try and do a contrast heel, because otherwise I would have had to have pulled out quite a bit of yarn, like almost an entire repeat, so that I could get back to where I was. So then the second one, you can see this is, you had a little bit, then the heel flap, and then the heel turn came back up into another stripe. But it means that overall they just look like scrappy, stripy socks. They don't particularly match. I mean, they match, but they don't look identical or anything like that. Anyway, I haven't shown these to my son. I finished them after Christmas, like Boxing Day or something. And on Christmas Day I was working on them and he was, "Oh, are they mine?" "Thanks, Mum! I love socks!" But when I finished them, I think he was already in bed. So I just put them aside, and now that I've shown you all, I will give them to him, and it will be very exciting for him. The next finish I got was, so the next three, in fact, are advent knitting. So if you followed through on Vlogmas and you haven't seen them yet, get ready. It's pretty exciting. So the first one, sorry, it's been folded, so it's got a line down the middle. The first one is this one. It is the flax sweater by Tin Can Knits. And so you can see it has this beautiful detail, garter stitch detail on the sleeves. Now, I made this out of an advent swap that I did with my sister, Melinda Knits and Sews. So all of the yarns in here were in the advent, and they are in here in order that they came up in the advent. It wasn't a gradient advent or anything like that, it was just a random scrappy advent. And I knew that I would love to make jumpers, but I also knew that with a random scrappy, I wasn't sure if it would be my son's style, my daughter's style, or something. So I split it into two. As I opened them every day, I would decide whether the colour matched this sweater or whether the colour matched this dress. Both of them are the flax sweater by Tin Can Knits. The dress, I made some mods, so I'll talk about that in a minute. So I did it mild. I held fingering weight double. The pattern itself calls for a worsted weight, which I didn't realise when I started it. I knew it was more than fingering because there is a flax light for fingering weight, but I didn't read the pattern properly. I just went fingering, not fingering, we'll do that one. So I went up a size for both of them, and then I used DK not worsted, so it's like it'll fit them both, it won't fit them both for long. But that's okay because this will be passed down to my daughter, and my daughters can be passed on to someone else as well. I love it. But because it's fingering held double, it is very squishy. And all of the lengths are according to the pattern for the sizes they are. It's just the widths that are a little bit less. And that's okay because my kids always need extra length in their sweaters. So this is it. I don't think I modded anything to do this one, except of course using fingering weight held double instead of worsted weight yarn. It is beautiful, it is soft, it is squishy. I cannot wait for my son to wear it. He is also very excited. He is one of the most knit-worthy people in my life. He loves knitting. All right, so this one for my daughter, all of the pinky warm tones, I mean not all the yellows, but a little bit of the yellow, all of the pinky, purpley colours, reddy colours came into here, and a little bit of green. And a little bit of rainbow bits. I love this dress. I love the way it turned out. What I did, my husband mentioned making it into a dress, and I think he was talking about sewing a skirt onto the bottom of the sweater. And I was like, yeah, I've done that before. I don't really want to for this. But then I was like, maybe I could just turn it into a sweater dress and she can wear it over leggings, and that would be so cute. So what I did when I got to the bottom of this yellow one, which was sitting around her waist, I started increasing, and I increased 1 stitch in every 5 stitches for a round. So that was on this colour for a round. And then I knit a couple of rounds and decided I actually wanted a more dramatic increase. So then I increased 1 for every 6. So I did 2, over the 2 increase rounds, I've increased 40% of what my stitch count was here. When I finished, so I finished 2 colours, and then I did another increase round, but these 2 I did it one after the other, and then I finished 2 colours, and then I did the same, so increased 1 after the other, 1 in every 5, and then 1 in every 6. All of the details for this are on my Ravelry page, so if you're interested in doing something similar, just head over down below in the description box. There'll be the link, and you can click on that, head over, and all of the notes for increases and mods I made are in there. So I did that, and then I thought I don't want just a rib at the bottom of a dress. I don't want it to cinch in, and I just thought it would look a little weird. So what I did was I designed this little frilly edge. And again, details for this are on my Ravelry page. But I also didn't want it to flick up. And I knew that blocking would help, but I wasn't sure how much it would help. So I did one row of knitting purlwise. Well, actually, I just turned my knitting around and knitwise the entire way around, but from the inside to make a purl effect on the outside. Again, I've put it in the project page, but I didn't want to purl all of those stitches. And so I just did that, and then I turned it back around and right side facing, I bound off. And I did it by casting on 3, casting on 3, binding off 6, casting on 3, binding off 6 to make that cute little edge. So that is it. I'm really, really excited with this one. I cannot wait to have her wear it. All right, I finished that. That was my first finish of 2023. I finished that on the 3rd of January. So it did take a couple of days into the new year to finish it. I didn't get much knitting time at the beginning of January. It was just a little bit crazy all round, but I'll get to that later. All right, the last finish, which is still a little damp from blocking, so I'll go put it back to finish drying after this, is my wallop cow. I love this. I love, love, love this. So this is obviously scrappy. This is an advent that I made for myself. I knew I wanted to do this. I wanted to have it done reasonably quickly because we went through a freezing spell before Christmas, end of November. It was just getting colder and colder. And so I thought if I can do one colour a day throughout December, then I can wear it for all the cold, which has now disappeared. I'll get to that later. But I did not finish it in the 24 days of Advent. I did a lot, and then I had a few gift things, and the mittens came up because my kids needed mittens because it was so cold, and a few other things that pushed this aside, but I have finished it, and I finished it 2 days ago, so it's been blocking. So this is the Wallop, I think it's the 2019 Wallop Advent. I saw Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady do it, and I just thought it looked so warm and crazy. These are all scraps from sock projects that I've done and minis. So there are 9 minis that I bought, and then the rest are scraps from sock projects that I've done. My sock, are they all sock yarn? They're not even all sock yarn. My scrap baskets were looking very empty before Advent. Very empty. Because I'd taken a lot out to do this. I'd been working on one of my scrappy blankets, which uses fingering weight yarn. And so there just wasn't much in there. And so I decided to get a couple of minis to supplement. And so I picked minis in colours that I knew I didn't have as many of and put it together. I love it. So let's see. I love it. That is so warm and it's so good. I tried it on just after I finished it, and I'd finished it, I'd woven in all the ends. I did weave in all the ends inside. I know it's a circular, like it's circular, it is enclosed, but I didn't want them poking out the yarn over holes. But I tried it on and it was quite tight. It did not fit like this. It would have fit like that. And so I was like, I'll block it. Most of it's superwash. It should stretch out a bit, and it has. Oh, that's going to be so warm when it's not slightly damp. Yeah, so the other thing about this is the Wallop Cow pattern has 3 different transitions from colour to colour. I only did the eyelet row transition. So you can see there are the little holes there. And I also did a Kitchener stitch. So you cast on provisionally and then you knit the whole thing and then you come back and you, I think in the pattern she has you do a 3 needle bind off to bind off together. But I wanted it to reflect the rest of the pattern. And so I played with it. The first part is a little bit messy because I was playing, but I found a way to do what kind of looks like an eyelet row, but in a Kitchener stitch. Again, the notes for how I did that is on my Ravelry. And I will say it's not, like it has a bit of a line. So I didn't play with it any more than knowing that I had the holes. It does have a bit of a line, which the other eyelet rows don't. But it's definitely mirroring it enough that I am okay. And obviously it's also between dark colours. No one's going to stop and look. If it was, you know, bright colours, maybe it'd be more obvious. Yeah, so again, all of the details of the mods I did with that are on my Ravelry page. But look at all those pretties. I definitely knit most with like blues, greens, pinks, purples, and browns apparently. I'd done quite a few socks for my dad, so I had quite a few browns in my scraps. Oh, it's gonna be so soft. All right, I cannot wait for this to dry and be able to wear it. It has definitely warmed up. It is not as cold as it was before Christmas. We had a warm Christmas. There is no snow to be seen, but it's still definitely beanie and scarf weather. Today I'm drinking, I want to say it's an Assam, just a black tea, plain black tea. Oh, and I always forget this. I am wearing my Maggie pullover by Comfort Zone Knits, Renya of Comfort Zone Knits. This was a test knit that I did. I actually knit 2 jumpers in the test knit. The first one I wasn't super happy with, the yarn choice, the colour and the fit a bit, but then she updated the pattern with some feedback from people and I need a second one and I love it. I wear it all the time. So you can see it has some beautiful lace. I love it. And then, I don't know if you can see, I'm wearing a skirt that I also made. I'm not sure you'll be able to see it. A little bit. Ah. Anyway, it's a skirt that I made as well that I haven't used for a while. But yesterday my husband was like, I'll look after the kids in the morning if you want to spend a bit more time getting ready in the morning. And I was like, oh, yes, please. So I did that today. And it felt really nice. All right. So that is all the finished objects since the last episode. Oh, I don't even know how many that was, but it's a few. Oh, no, it's not. There is one more that I don't have here to show you. I made 2 pairs of mittens. I made these ones, and then I made some for my son, which were a little bit bigger, and they was also marled with the same blue, but had a blue and red and black other colour. So they were a bit darker, but also marled. He's got them at preschool. As I was packing him off this morning, he said, Mum, are my mittens in my bag? And I said, no, they're not. He's like, but if I go out with preschool, I'll need my mittens. I said, oh yeah, that's a good point. So I put the mittens in the bag. He said, yeah, so I can play with snow. There's no snow, buddy. I'm sorry. There's no snow. But he has his mittens anyway. All right, now, before I get into whips, a quick note about stash and such. I did a separate video here that you can go have a look. I will link it below, which is an update on my stash for 2022 and what I used, as well as what I have going into 2023 and my plans for using it in 2023. So I'm not going to go into all the details of that here. If you are interested in numbers and stats and planning kind of things, go check out that video. It was a lot of fun to make because I just got to go through stash and talk about it and plan and dream. But there is something I need to confess. I found more yarn. I knew I would. I knew I would. This one was in my scraps because it's less than 50 grams, which is how I do scraps. Anything that's not a mini that is less than 50 grams, I put into scraps. But then I found this. There was a box in my study that all of this yarn came in, and I looked at it the other day and I thought it was empty. And then I told my husband this morning that it was empty, and he said, well, can you take it away? And I picked it up and I opened it up, and a 50-gram ball, which meant I then took this out of scraps, because what I do when I put it in my book is I say 50 plus whatever this is. And that way, if I want to make something that's 75 grams, I have it all there. So that's a little sad. I've started increasing already, but that's okay. So here it is. Yeah, I just wanted to show you my increase has begun, but I won't put it down. In fact, I can double check. I don't think I have put my total into January yet. No, I haven't. So here we go. Total weight of stash January 1st. I haven't filled that out yet. I did all the numbers, I crunched them, I told you, but I haven't put it into this book. So what I will do is I will add that into my stash, and I will not add it into come in January. I will just update that initial number. That's exciting, because it's always sad when you don't buy something in a month and then it comes up as you have. I am going to get my yarn this month, but it's yarn for dyeing, so it won't count unless I actually dye it this month. That's my other decision, is yarn doesn't count as in my stash until it's usable. So if I get undyed yarn and it sits in the garage, or I have a sweater quantity that is already dyed but I want to over dye, that's not in my stash. When I dye it, I will add it to my stash, and when I use it, I will take it away from my stash. All right, so that was my little confession. I've got another 75 grams or so. Now I'm going to go through my whips. I'm pretty excited. I've only got 8 whips here, and a few of them are very close to completion. So I'm trying to get the ones that are the low-hanging fruit, the close to completion ones done. Now, I'm not someone who has to have only 1 whip or 2 whip. Clearly, that's not me. But there are some small, simple projects that I want to cast on and I want to finish, but I know if I cast them on now, then they will kind of be worked on alongside socks and other things that I have on the go, where if I finish something that I have and then cast it on, it will actually feel like it's a much quicker knit. And I'm talking like a beanie, a Musselburgh beanie, and a cowl in DK and worsted weight yarn. Like, they will be quick knits compared to a lot of the ones that I do. But I don't want these ones that have been sitting here a long time to keep sitting here. So I am making a concerted effort to finish these ones. While I still have that, I want to clean up. I want to make things tidy. I catalogued all my stash. That's what the other video is about. I catalogued, I wrote down everything that I own. And I took notes about what I'm wanting to make and what I have the yarn for and the pattern for, and etc, etc. So I want to, while I'm riding that wave of let's work through my stash and let's know what I have, I want to be able to finish projects, and I am. And so in the last week, I finished 2 projects because I'm trying to, basically. All right. So I do have 8 whips left and 2 long-term projects left. So I'm going to show you. I'm pretty sure I've shown them all at some point on the podcast before, but some of them not for a while, because if you're new here, by the way, if you're new, welcome. It is so good to have you. And if you are returning, welcome back. It is so nice to see you again. So if you're new here, the way I do it is I show things as I work on them. So in the 2-week period between podcasts, I will show you what I have done in the last 2 weeks. which means if I have a project that I've cast on 3 months ago and haven't touched for 2 months, I'm not going to show that every time. I think that's a waste of time for you and for me. So I'm trying to only show you things that have progress. Today, almost everything has been progressed, but I'm going to show you everything anyway because it's the new year, new beginning. Let's see what's here. All right, the first one. This one I call my blue granny square blanket. I started it in 2019, so it's my oldest yarny bit. I think my intention was to make a blanket for my son. Pretty sure it was for my son, since there was no other babies in my life at the time. When he was like 3 or 4 months old, I would have started this. And I started it with scraps from my stash, and then I had to buy some more because I was going to run out because I did such a limited palette. There are literally 3 yarns here. So I had to buy an extra ball of the dark blue and the white. I don't think I had to buy any more of the aquamarine. Anyway, I had all of the squares done when I pulled it back out a year ago. And so I decided rather than making it a bigger blanket and making more squares, I would just join them together. So I blocked all the squares, I joined them together. Joining them together I think was end of November maybe. I finished that, and then it's just been about this side, all the ends. Now, this little section here, that's how many ends I had for every square, basically. It's taken a long time to sew in the ends. Having finished the wallet cowl, because this one also had a lot of ends to sew in, 48 ends to sew in, 2 for each colour. I was like, oh, I'm on a roll, let's go. So I got this one out. Ends are almost all sewn in. It's probably one night's more sewing in. And then I want to do a crochet edge just to give some reinforcement. At the moment it's just sewn in together, so put some reinforcement in, maybe make it a little bit of a scalloped edge, and then that'll be done. I don't need to block it again because I've already blocked it, and I don't think the edge will need blocking, but I'm pretty excited. I don't know what this will be used for, who it will go to. It is a lovely lap blanket, but it's not big enough for me. So either my kids will assume it. It was originally intended for Zach, so maybe I'll still do that, or I'll put it away for when a friend has a baby. They will be my 2 options. So there you go. I'm close. Hopefully by the next podcast that'll be finished and you can see it in all its glory. All right, my second whip, which is my second oldest from 2021. I have 1 finished sock. These ones I call my sea turtle reef socks. That's the colorway. The yarn is matte. Oh, how terrible am I? This one is made entirely in Bendigo Woolen Mills Luxury 8-ply. Bendigo Woolen Mills is an Australian mill, and they sell yarn wholesale, direct to public. So I've always found they sell them in 200-gram balls. So if you're doing a big project or projects that use a lot of yarn, very worth it. If you want to do scrappy or need 50-gram balls of lots of different colors, you will buy more than you need. But the quality is great. The yarn is great. I love the feel of luxury for wearing and for blankets. Definitely recommend. And it's coastal blue is the dark blue, aquamarine is the light blue, and I think it's frost is the white. So there you go. The socks Sea Turtle Reef is by Maximo Yarns, who is another Australian dyer down in Melbourne, on the Mornington Peninsula, I believe. I love the yarn, I love the colourways and how they come up so speckly. Like it's still clearly green, but there is blue, there's black, there's brown, there's red. It's just beautiful. This one, I last year knit 20 pairs of socks in the year. 20. And yet this pair of socks has been sitting here for at least a year and a half, almost 2 years now. And the reason is I'm doing it continental. So when I knit, I hold the yarn in my right hand and I throw the yarn over the needle. Continental is when you hold the yarn in your left hand and you pick it with the needle. A lot of people think continental knitting is faster, and it can be faster. I think last I heard, the world's fastest knitter was an English style knitter. So you don't have to knit continental to be quick. But I thought maybe I'd give it a go and see if I could get to the point that it was quicker. Well, I'm not there yet. And I also don't find it as relaxing. So I'm going to keep knitting English style, but I do want to finish this pair of socks continental style. So I'm working on it. The thing is, so I'm 4 rows away, 3 rows away from the heel flap. So I'm so close on the second sock to getting to the heel flap. It is definitely quicker to do now that I know what I'm doing a bit better, but I still don't find it relaxing. So it's not something that I go, oh, I want to knit, I'll pick this up. I still have to go, I want to finish the sock, I'll pick this up. So that's where I'm up to for the second sock. I have markers on here, you can see from here down. They are marking every 10 rows. And when I reach that point on here, I transfer the marker from here to here. And that's how I keep track of them and make sure that they're the same size. However, this is a new skill. This is not something that I have done before, knitting continental for an entire project. And so my gauge has changed. Look at that. That there, it's going to work out to be about 2 centimeters diameter difference between the socks. Like that is right there. That is the difference between the circumference or the diameter, whatever you want to call it, of the socks. That's a lot. So I realized just the look of them, the stitches look a different size. I realized that, and the fabric definitely feels looser on this one than this one. So I laid them out and had a look and I was like, yeah, they're going to be different sizes. But I'm going to continue anyway because I don't mind. Well, actually, I should think of it that way though. I'm going to start the heel now. So what I was saying is I don't mind having the circumference different because I'll wear it, that'll be fine. However, it is going to affect the length. So already holding them up like this, I'm, 6 rows, 8 rows into the heel flap, and I've got another 6 rows to do. So what I will do, now that I've looked at that way, is I will rip back a few rows of the new one, and I will start the heel flap and I will go by measuring rather than by stitch count for the rest of the sock. Because I don't mind if one is a bit snugger than the other. I do mind if one is massively too long. Not going to work for me. So I will do that. But that's good because it means that I have less to do than I thought I did. Anyway, I am doing these on ChowGoo red lace 9-inch circular needles, 2.5 millimeter. 2.25 millimeter. I usually do socks on 2.5 millimeter, but I knew that gauge for 9-inch circulars often got bigger. because you have to hold them so loosely or you get cramps in your hands. So I went down and I'm glad I did. I don't know if I'll do another entirely continental project. I may. All right, whip number 3. So this one I cast on August last year, so it's not that old. But I did cast it on before I was really ready to work on it, and I think that shows because I finished the collar, the cuff, and I stopped. Now this is going to be the Verna sock, which is in the book 52 Weeks of Socks. That is the plan. I've done the cuff, it's just a 1x1 twisted rib cuff. Oh no, it's a 1x2 twisted rib cuff. Quite like the look of it, but I haven't gone back to the book to see the pattern for the rest of the sock. The yarn I'm using for this is this beautiful blue, I don't remember what's in it. It's got, I'm pretty sure, cashmere and merino and maybe something else. I bought it from the Mulberry Tree in Milton, which is in Australia. It's a beautiful little crafting shop. It's got yarn, it's got fabric, it's very cute. But I have lost the tag long ago. So I will just wash it, hand wash when I get to that point. And it's yarn that I have tried to make socks out of like 3 or 4 times now. And every other time I've frogged it because I haven't liked the look of the socks. Well, this one I am determined to keep, because I think I will love the socks. I just need to go back and look at the pattern, because that's where I've fallen down on that one. All right, the next one I cast on my holiday last year. So it was the 4th of September. And when I cast this one on, I knew that I would be putting it aside for a while, but I cast it on anyway. And I am excited to come back and work on this when I've got a few of the other ones sorted. This is my 3-season cardigan. Goes this way. Man, I love this. It is a little, oh, there we go. That's a better color. It's like it's a little bluer there. That's about it. Oh, I love this. This is a wool and pine design pattern. I've provisionally cast on, it starts at the top of the back and you knit the back, and then you come around the front and you knit you pick up the stitches and you knit the front, and then you, I think, join it at the side. Knit the sleeves maybe and then join it. I'm not sure. I haven't got to that point yet. I'm not a read the whole pattern first. I'm a read what you need to read and occasionally muck up and fix it later on. I absolutely love this, and I really just want to start working on it again. I love cable work. This is the one that, if you've been following for a while, these panels I did wrong, and I had to like frog back almost the entire panel that you see there and reknit just this section so that it looks like that. Oh, this is going to be the most gloriously squishy, soft, beautiful cardigan. So that is what you see. That will be on the back, not the front, but that will kind of be the fit of it. So it has a little bit of a dropped sleeve, and these bits here actually form part of the sleeve. Oh. I just want to knit this now. See, this is one of the things I like about getting whips out, is that you realize why you started the project, why you fell in love with the project at the beginning. I think I have, after I finish some things I have going on, there are 2 projects, this one and another one that I have cast on, that will get my priority. But I may finish the quick knits that I mentioned before I really start working on them. All right, this next one, I also have a half finished object. This is a pair of socks. I've done an Eye of the Partridge heel flap, which just never really, like you can see it there a little bit, but it never really shows up for me as well as it does for other people. So we'll see. This sock I didn't use a pattern for. I was just experimenting with a few different things to see what I like, to see if I can get a sock that fits me better. And I just did some shorties. I think it's a 12 row cuff and a 14 row foot before I get to the heel flap, and the heel flap is quite short. So we'll see how I go with this in the wearing stage, but this has been like my waiting for the kids to go to bed knitting, or waiting for my son to brush his teeth knitting, I should say. So the second one, I just last night started the heel flap. I did 2 rows of the heel flap. Last night he got ready for bed very well, very quickly. He's almost 4. He turns 4 in a couple of weeks. But he got ready for bed very well, very quickly, because I said the quicker he got ready for bed, the more he could play before bed. And so he got ready for bed by himself with very little supervision. He then played like I said he could, and then after playing was like, oh, I need to do a poo. And so he then did that, which took a bit more time. So I ended up sitting upstairs waiting for him to get dressed and finish getting ready for bed. The whole process was probably 30-40 minutes. But I knew that it could take a while, so I brought some tea up with me. And so I just sat in the chair and knit for 30-40 minutes while my son got ready for bed, and I drank tea. It was lovely. And I think that is something that has helped bedtimes go a lot smoother, is me not going, oh, go to bed so I can start my kid free time, but actually, what can I do to make getting you to bed more enjoyable for everyone? It's working. All right, this next one, I also haven't done much on. Oh, I should say, those socks I cast on October 7. I cast them on when I was sick, and I chose the yarn because it was a pre-wound ball. I'm not loving the colour of the yarn, I think. I would rather have done a pattern sock than a vanilla sock with that colour, or even like some stripy with some another colour. Because I like the yarn, it's beautiful and soft to work with, but it's not like, hey, I really want to work on my pale pink and green socks. Oh, guys, I'm doing it again. Forgetting to tell you what I'm actually using. All right, so this beautiful one, I told you the pattern name, which is the 3-season cardigan. The yarn is Bobby Blue. It is a Malabrigo Rios yarn in the Bobby Blue colourway. Rios, Bobby Blue, and Malabrigo. It is worsted weight. My fingers get blue when I work on this, so it's definitely got some excess dye in it, but it is really nice to work with. These ones are, I'm going to double check now. Yeah, it is. It's 3 Trees Fibercrafts, and it's on their fledgling 4-ply sock, and the colour is Abide. And I have to say 2 things. First, I chose the colour for the name. I loved the idea of Abide, and I chose, out of all of my pre-wound skeins, I chose it because of the word Abide to do that day. But when I picked it online, it seemed to have more of this kind of deep pink in it. And so I thought I was getting like this, but with like deep pink speckles. And it is deep pink speckles, but it's less than I expected. So I still like the yarn and I will still use it, absolutely, but it is a little different to what I was expecting when I bought it. And that's just the nature of hand-dyed yarns. Like, I'm not blaming 3 Trees or anything like that. When you buy hand-dyed yarn, every skein looks different. And so if you're looking at one skein, if there are 4 skeins in the picture and you're looking at one skein going, oh, I really like that, but you're not necessarily getting that skein. You could get any of the skeins in the picture. And this was one of my earlier indie dyed yarn buys. And so I hadn't quite caught on to how to look at yarn that you're thinking of buying online. I'm getting better at it. All right, this next one, how about I show you the yarn first? This yarn all came from Hobby. It's Happy Sheep yarn. This is baby wool. It is charcoal melange, and it's colour 28. And then the contrast yarn is also Happy Sheep, but it's magic sock wool, and it's colour 15. It's like Sandy Beaches or something. This one is a 100 gram skein gradient. And this one is one colour melange. And I'm using them to make the tri-gradient shawl. So it's very early days for this little one. You can see some gradient already happening on this side, and then the black as the main colour on the other side. I love this. I have just, I believe, yeah, down here, I've just started the second section. So this brioche will continue up one side of the shawl, and then up the other side we'll have a garter stitch section. So the brioche will continue this width the whole way. It's not going to get any wider. I made this, it's the Tri-Gradient Shawl by Stephen West. I made one in 2021 after I finished the Mr. Knit Along the Shawlography. I made it for my brother-in-law, and when I finished it, my husband said, I really like that, can you make me one? So I am. My brother-in-law got his for Christmas this year. Like, I made it that much in advance and sent it for this year, and he loves it. So that's very exciting. And I am excited to make a matching one for my hubby. That one, I mean, it's a shawl. It's a lot of stitches. It's the equivalent of 4 skeins of sock yarn. So it'll take a while to knit that fingering weight. And it is brioche. Brioche. I love brioche. So you're using the 2 colours concurrently. You're only ever holding one at a time, but you knit with one, and then you knit the same direction with the other, and then you turn it over and you knit back with one, and you knit the same direction with the other. I love it. I love the look of it. I'll leave it there. All right, the next one. We're almost there. 2 more whips and then some scrappy blankets. The next whip is this one. This is using a sock blank that I dyed with my son. We dyed it using food colouring, so he made a mess, but it was okay. It was safe. And I'm using it to make a Musselburgh beanie, Musselburgh hat. I love this colour. Like, I tried to dye this colour for me, and I failed. I did it too dark. And as I'm knitting it up for him, like, I looked at this going, oh, I'm not really a huge fan of that. But as I'm knitting it up, I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I wanted. And so I'm thinking I might go and dye myself something out of food dye to try and get this kind of look for me, because it is beautiful. Yeah. So I'm through the decreases. You can see here, decreases stop. I don't know how much more I have to knit, but quite a bit. Probably about that. Musselburghs, you knit a long tube and then you close it up at the other end, and then you put one end inside the other. And so it's a double thickness beanie that you then also can fold the flap up to make it even thicker again. It is a pattern by Isolde, and my project page is linked below with the pattern in it if you're interested. Yeah, the thing I will say about this one, it's just plain knitting at the moment, which means it's simple, but I'm doing them on my my Mindfulness Knit Pro. So I'm doing it on 3mm, and they are swivel ends, but it just has a jog where the swivel is. And I don't know if it's because of the kink in the yarn, because I'm knitting it straight from the sock blank, or if it's because of the size of the diameter and that it's a little bit tight, but it's really annoying to get the yarn up the jog. So I then went and bought some not swivel ends, a not swivel cable to put them on, and it was even worse. The job was worse on the not swivel ends than on the swivel ends. I don't know what that's about. So I gave up. I went back to the swivel ends and I'm using them, and it's still really annoying. Like, it's just annoying to get it up. So what I'm debating doing is buying a pair of, I think these must be, yeah, so these will be 16-inch total. I'm debating buying a 16-inch 3mm Chow fixed circular so that I can knit musselbergs in fingering weight without having the hitch. I may also get whatever I would use for a DK yarn, maybe a 4mm, and do the same. It's just really annoying. It's making it not a relaxing, mindless knit, because every time I want to move the stitches around, I have to press. It's not a problem for bigger things. So when I've used it for sweaters and other things, it hasn't been an issue, which is why I'm wondering if it is the yarn itself that's making it annoying. But definitely, no. I had the same problem when I was doing the small circumference for the flax sweaters. When I went up to the 24-inch cable, I think, and definitely the 40-inch cable, it wasn't a problem. So I think it's just the small diameter that's making it, that's making it annoying. So that's what I'll probably do. I'm still working on it. I picked it up yesterday because I needed something I didn't have to think about, but definitely it is more frustrating to knit than I would like for a musselberg. Musselbergs are amazing. And I don't really want to put it onto a longer needle and do magic loop. I could, I just don't really want to. All right, my last pair of whips. I have another half-finished object. This is my Perfect sock, Reggie Perfect. I do have the label. Reggie Perfect. It is colorway 9137, and it is so much fun. So the ball of yarn comes, no, it doesn't come like this. It comes in a ball. I wound it up onto two cakes that look like this. And so you get the cuff on the outside. When I wound it, when you do it from the ball, you have to go from the inside. But I wound it, so I have to go from the outside. So I've got the colour on the outside, the cuff on the outside, I've got colour. And then in here, you've got another bit of the white. When you get to that, you start your heel flap, or whatever heel you're doing. And then when you finish your heel, you just keep knitting, and when you're ready, you start your toes. And you should get to the white when you start your toe, or around when you start your toe. So you can see my heel flap, I've got just a couple of rows extra after my heel flap, which I'm totally fine with. And then my toe, I started the decrease. There you go. I started the decrease here. So just a couple of rows, but it still has the look of a different toe. I've really enjoyed it. I haven't had any problems with the yarn. My one thing is the cuff just seemed huge compared to a cuff I normally do. I think it's 26 rows and I would normally do 16. So that seemed to take a long time, but once I got past that, it was really quick. Now the pattern I've done here is not a pattern that I have bought, but I'm also not going to tell you how I did it, because I did the Follow Your Path socks by the Crazy Sock Lady, and it used this technique inside in the pattern, and so I'm going to link it to kind of give her credit for it, because it was her idea in the way I used it. But there's also another person that has a pattern out there that I think might be the same. And so I don't want to give it away for free when someone else may be charging for it. But I also don't want to buy the pattern because I don't need to buy a pattern for something that I have figured out / used in a different pattern. So I'm like, I don't want to tell you how I did it because I don't want you to, like, I don't want to possibly take away business from this other person. But I also don't want to be like, hey, I did this pattern that I haven't bought and I don't know if that's the pattern I've done or not. Anyway, so the pattern I got the idea from is Follow Your Path by the Crazy Sock Lady. So that will be linked on my Ravelry page for this. If you're interested in the pattern that looks very similar and maybe the same, it's called String of Lights by Sock Witchery. But like I said, I haven't looked at the pattern. I've never seen the pattern. I don't know if it is the same. It just has a similar look. But the basics of it, which I'm very happy to tell you, it's a 3x1 rib, but it's a twist on that. And basically I like the feel of a 3x1 rib, but I don't like ribbing every row. And so through knitting this other sock, Follow Your Path, I was like, oh, here's a way you can get a rib effect without knitting rib every row. And so I did that. I did also, so the base of the sock is the vanilla socks on Magic Loop, but I did the 2x2 on there, and I did, rather than 16 rows of repeats here, I did 14 rows on the heel flap, and then I decreased extra in the gusset, so I ended up with 56 stitches around the foot, but I started with 64 up here. And yeah, I think that's right. But I really liked it, and it fits really nicely, so I'm excited to finish the second one and see if this is my new favourite go-to sock. This is what I've done on the second one. Barely anything at all. And I'm using Knit Pro Carbons, DPMs. Whoa, dropped my yarn. Knit Pro Carbons DPMs, which I'm not a huge fan of. They have a kink where it joins here because it is two different metals or two different whatevers, elements. Not a huge fan. Definitely the more I've relaxed into the knit, it's become easier and the kink hasn't annoyed me as much, but I'm not sure I wouldn't buy more of them. I'm not sure how much I'll use these ones, except that I like having multiple socks on the go and I like knitting them DPM. I like knitting them anyway. Alright, so that is all my whips. I also brought up to show you, I have two long-term scrappy projects. The first one is a marled one, and I'm holding Easy Care Merino in the cool grey colour 4 with scraps. And this is what I have done. Now, the needles are bigger than, sorry, the blanket is bigger than the needles, but that is the same the whole way across. I love this. This is called the Bits and Bobs blanket by Bakery Bears, Faye Jones, something like that. Project page linked below. And it's like a fisherman's rib or a half fisherman's rib. It is not brioche. You just hold two double the whole way, but it ends up with a very brioche looking style. I love it. It's a very simple pattern, but I could not have, I would not have known how to do it had I not read the pattern. So I'm glad I bought the pattern, but now that I know how to do it, I don't need to look at the pattern at all. It is so simple. I absolutely love it. I am using all of my non-sock yarn fingering weight scraps for this. And this is all of it. It has grown through the Advent process. This basket was almost empty before Advent. and it has just grown and grown and grown. This one was one that I was given, like it came in an order that I made. And I put it in here because I was like, it doesn't say what it is, so I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that's a fingering sock yarn. So I'm going to put that over here into my sock yarn ones. But yeah, so it's pretty exciting to see that growing through Advent swaps. And I will just keep adding them into this basket so that it can keep growing. I've got all of the base colour in here and I'll just add a few as I go. The other scrappy blanket that I've started, which is quite, doing this on Knit Pro 4mm. I don't remember the type of needle, but it's Knit Pro. This next one is a corner to corner scrappy crochet blanket, and it is using DK weight yarn. Now, this is my DK weight scraps. Not many. So this blanket will just sit there until I have some more and then I'll crochet them up. And I'm using a 3.5mm tulip Atimo crochet hook. And I think I would have done a 4mm if I'd had one at the time, but I didn't. So I started on a 3 and I will finish it on the 3. But I absolutely love it. And it is early days for that. Now, that is all of my whips. The next thing I want to share with you is my sock yarn of the month. This is Dying Dream. It is 80% merino, 20% nylon, 360 meters to 100 grams, which is kind of a thick fingering, a thin sport. It's kind of in between, but the feel of it to me is almost a DK. So I don't know if it's just like a fluffy, I'm not sure, but I'm going to knit it like DK and make DK weight socks because it is still cold and I want something to wear on my feet at home or in under boots when I go out. So that is my plan. I'm going to knit this one this month. It is the 10th and I haven't even caked it up yet because I'm trying to get some other things finished. But DK socks I can have done in a week, so I'm not worried about that. How pretty is that? And that's her card. Dying Dream is an Australian dyer based in Canberra. And I got this during the Big Wool Show, which is an online Australian wool show, which is a lot of fun. And my other acquisition is fibre. This was a Christmas present from my parents. And my plan is to spin these into a 3-ply yarn to make, I'll have to check whether it's meant to be DK or worsted, but to make into a weekender sweater. I have been spinning 100% merino and I have got it so thin that I could do a 3-ply into a DK. But this one's Shetland, Cheviot and baby alpaca. The blue is merino alpaca and the champagne is baby alpaca and twisser silk. So I'm going to have to learn how to spin different fibres. But I'm very excited for these. And again, I want to start spinning, but I want to have some of my other projects finished first. I sound like a broken record, but I really do. So I'm excited to have these. I really want it to be like not this dark. I want it to be like a mid-range, some parts kind of barber cording. Yeah, I'm so excited. So I've got 2 each of these two, and they only had 1 of these in stock, but I bought another one that will be coming to me with my next parcel from my sister. So there will be another very similar one that I will use, and I'll probably figure out a way to hold that, and the other one I haven't figured it out yet. But I'll figure out a way to make the yarn a little consistent. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's my acquisitions. So if, oh, and it came with a little bit of scrap, which I'm very excited about. And, oh, it came with a little pin. So cute. All right, so that was my Christmas present from my parents. Thanks, Mum and Dad, if you're watching. Yeah, so what has been happening? If you're just here for the yarn, that is it for the yarn. I'm just going to talk a little bit about life things and then I will sign off. All right, so over here, there is my 4-ply merino type things that does not have nylon, so not sock yarn, but ones that I don't really have a plan for, could use for colour work. I have my little stack of minis here. All of my pre-wound sock yarns are here, and behind that are my sweater quantities. I've also got, sorry, my sweaters with a plan. I've also got my 3 sock blanks there. This is all fingering weight sock yarn. And then at the top I have some DK, well, it's kind of a basket of odds and ends. It's some of my novelty yarn and such that I just don't really have any plans for, that I might find something else to do. Over here, what looks a little bit of a mess, this is kind of all of the rest of my projects. So some of it is sweater quantities that I don't have a plan for. I have my cottons at the front. I have my Musselburgh at the front, Beanie at the front. These I'm potentially going to do scrappy stripy socks by the Crazy Sock Lady. But it's kind of, oh, and down the bottom you've got the minis that I'm going to turn into shorty socks. So it's kind of project-ish, but without plans. This is my DK weight box with all of my DK weight yarns that I could use for colour work. And then I've got my 4-ply cottons, my 3 skeins of DK weight, which I probably should put in there except they don't fit, but I could use them for colour work. And then a sweater's quantity of yarn that I will make something else out of before I make a sweater out of it. Yeah, I have to say it's not organized in such a way that I love it. I like this shelf. The rest of it, I feel like it's a little bit, I have deep storage, not shallow storage, and so it's not always easy to organize yarn. I don't mind having boxes of things, but like this is quite a large box. The DK one doesn't fit all of the potential colour work into it. And the reason I'm finding it struggling, I think, what I had before is over here was all of this yarn was in this corner and kind of filled up that triangle. Down here was the rest of my like 4-ply and DK weight not sock yarn. So kind of this box and my other end of box. And then, and a lot of this box actually was down here too. And then this was all my sweater quantities. But what I found was I couldn't see my sweater quantities, so I didn't reach for them to knit them. And I found in the back of this corner some mildew type stuff coming in because this is the roof. And so I didn't want to put yarn back in that corner until I figured out what to do with that. So that's why I've got stuff in a box, because it was just the very corner that was affected. So I've just put a few books there not touching the corner or touching the roof, and the plastic box to protect the yarn. But I've got to figure out what to do there. And I think, I mean, this is going to make me want to knit these because they're stressing me out. So maybe it'll be good and I can knit all those pre-wound ones and it'll be grand. I'm tempted with this random box of assortments and some of these ones and the DK ones. I am tempted to just pull them out and do a scrappy basket, because scrappy basket doesn't have to be scraps. It can be longer bits of yarn. It can be full balls and skeins of stuff that you no longer love. And then up here, sorry, my camera's doing weird things. This is my scraps. So we've got, DK sock yarn. We have DK knot sock yarn that I'm turning into a corner to corner crochet blanket. And we have fingering weight sock yarn. My fingering weight knot sock yarn is downstairs. I'm using that in another blanket. So that is being stored downstairs because I pick it up and work on it. So there you go. The sock yarn one is looking much fuller after Christmas and Advent. I will say that. All right, that's my stash. So if you're just here for the yarn, thanks for coming, thanks for joining me, and I will see you next time. I should be back in 2 weeks. All right, so for those of you who want to hear about life stuff, it has been crazy. Doing Vlogmas every day for Christmas and the lead up to Christmas was a lot of fun. I loved it. But it was also a bit of extra work. And when I finished, I found myself both wanting to record everything, so I'd be like, oh, I can show people, but also kind of like, oh, I don't have to edit a video every day. This is really nice. So it's been a mixed thing. Like, I've really enjoyed it, but I've also really enjoyed the break. And so that's why I'm doing the podcast this week, not last week, because I could have done it last Tuesday, but I just wanted to sit in that break a little bit more and enjoy the family time. I am planning to do some vlogs this year, so you will see that around, and I'm still planning to do the project bag tutorial. So if you're interested in that, I will hopefully record that next Tuesday, and I don't know how long it will take to edit and upload that, but hopefully I'll record that next Tuesday. Yeah, it's a new year. It is 2023. It is amazing. It is warm. Like, it hasn't been below zero really even at night here. It's cold, like I said, beanie and scarf sweater, but it's not freezing. And that is really strange for living in Poland. This time last year, every time we went outside, it was bundled up to the max. And this time I'm like, oh, do the kids need a coat? I guess they probably should have one. It's crazy. I think it is God's blessing, considering everything that's happening in the next country and the amount of people who are without power and gas prices and all those things. I think it is the grace of God that it is as warm as it is. Yeah, there are a lot of people who will be alive now that otherwise wouldn't have been if it had been colder. So that is really nice. And it makes it feel a bit more like a cold summer in Australia, which is what we'd be used to for Christmas, rather than a warm winter in Poland. So it's kind of helping the homesickness a little, because I feel like it's more what I'm used to. What else is happening? Australian Open qualifiers are on, and the actual Aussie Open will start soon. That's tennis, for those of you who don't know, so I'm going to try and watch a little bit of that over the coming weeks. This time in Australia, it's summer holidays, so for kids and students, not for workers usually. But I got used to watching the Australian Open and sewing with my aunt. Sorry, sewing with my grandma, watching the Australian Open with my aunt. So I am planning to do some knitting in Australian Open, maybe some sewing in Australian Open, I'm not sure. Get my kids into tennis, maybe. Yeah, so we'll do that in the coming couple of weeks. We got a new dog. I just remembered we haven't had a normal podcast since we got a new dog. We got a new dog. I spoke about it a little bit on Vlogmas. We got it on the 27th of December. Very cute puppy. She's a Polish Lowland sheepdog. She's about 3 months old now. She's very smart and stubborn. So she understands what we're saying very quickly. And then once she understands, if we, slack off on giving her treats or something, she'll slack off on doing it. She's like, no, why should I? So we're working through training her and socializing her. And that's another reason that just 2 weeks, or last week, I was like, I'm too tired. I can't do a podcast, because it's like having another baby in the house. Not quite as demanding, but definitely affecting sleep, affecting routines, changing things, affecting downtime. Yeah, it's a dog. She's beautiful. I love her. Other than that, it's pretty much life as usual here. We're getting back into things. Zechariah's going to preschool, and he's going for a bit longer because he was getting really frustrated that we'd pick him up straight after lunch and he didn't get to play. Because he'd eat extra lunch and he'd have seconds, and all the other kids would be playing, and then we'd pick him up and he'd have to come home. So he's staying at preschool a bit longer so he can have some of that extra playtime, which is really encouraging that he likes preschool enough to want to stay. And it gives us a bit of an extra time before he comes home to do what we're doing. And I think that's about it. I'm not someone to make New Year's resolutions, so I don't have any this year I'm going to type stuff. I do like the fresh start of the new year, and I do like reflecting on what I've done and what I want to do differently, but I don't do it in a this year I'm going to and push everything out of the way to do so. I'm very much let's think about it, let's ponder, let's reflect. And when I find something that I could do better, let's have a new start on that. But I do that throughout the year. So this is kind of a big time for reflection, but I do make those kinds of adjustments throughout the year. So I'm enjoying the fresh start, but I'm not bound by it, if that makes sense. And you'll see things like the way that I've catalogued my stash. I've been making goals of things that I'd like to see this year, but I'm not going to feel like I failed if I haven't done those things. It's just kind of an adjustment, a refocusing of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And I clearly haven't had no whips to start this year, but I am enjoying the feeling of getting them finished and passing them on to the people and the uses that they are for. So that's exciting. Yeah, I think that's about it. I'm sure I'll say goodbye and then think of something else I wanted to share, but that's okay. So thank you for joining me for another episode of Kirsty Knits and Sews. It's been really lovely sharing with you the progress that I've made over the past month on so many objects and projects, and it feels good. All right. Thanks for joining me. I will see you again in a couple of weeks, and keep your eyes out. It'll be at least a week, but keep your eyes out for that sewing project bag tutorial if you're interested in that as well. I will see you in a couple of weeks for the next podcast. Bye. Happy knitting.